Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
You know, on this program, and I'm going to take just a second and say this, I'm not afraid to dip my toe into waters that some others might be afraid to see how hot or cold it is. And I'm just going to say some things that I think need to be said. White people are afraid to stand up for themselves, and I've been wondering why whites are racist all the time and no other race is. You have the United Negro College Fund, you have Martin Luther King Day, you have Black History Month, you have Cesar Chavez Day, you have the NAACP, you have Black Entertainment Television. And think about this, if we had white entertainment television, we'd be racist. If we had a white pride day, you would call us racist. And if we had white history month, we'd be called racist. Think about it. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning. The lovely Kate Smith and God Bless America. Thank you very much. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell. Good morning, everybody, with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and some of our great advertisers, including, of course, Western Waste Services, locally owned and operated, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them at 734-6969. And here now, the lovely Gina Jamison.
Well, good morning, sunshine.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's going to be a busy day.
You know, what I said in the opening is really true. I am so sick and tired of everybody else being of another color, another race, always calling out and saying, well, you're racist, or the left calling us racist. You stop and think about it, and just a few of the things I mentioned in the opening are absolutely true.
They are absolutely true, and it's a funny thing, my brother and I were having the same conversation just a couple of days ago. Seriously, we were. It's like there's Black History Month, there's all of these other things, but you know, there's nothing for the Caucasians. Why? Because if we do that, yeah, we're racist.
And the thing is, there's even a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, a Black Chamber of Commerce, and okay, let me throw this one at you real quick. What about a Black Miss America pageant? You can't be white and enter that, but they, on the other hand, can enter the Miss America pageant in general.
Oh, yes. Very much.
I mean, there's a lot of things to be considered, and I'm sick and tired, and I want to get this point across, of some of the low-educated people calling people racist. It's too easy a term to throw out at people when they have no clue what they're talking about.
Please understand the term before you throw it out loosely.
Amen. I guess I'm off my soapbox this morning, but I'm glad you agree with me. I'm absolutely sick of Caucasians being lumped into a little corner and letting the rest of the world point fingers at them.
I agree completely.
All right, Gina, thanks. Do we have a pledger?
Yes, we have Rotten on for the pledge, and Michael Rogers did call in, so we have him on for the weather.
All right, Gina, thanks. Excellent job. Rotten, please, the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, my dear friend, you did a wonderful job. Now, please take that shy, retiring wife out to breakfast.
I'll try.
Okay, buddy, thanks. Appreciate it. It's time for the weather, and the weather is brought to everybody by Cheney Flooring and Home Design. These are wonderful, wonderful people at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley for all your carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, whatever you need to make your house a home. And they got great ideas for you, too. It's okay to opt for something other than a sofa in the living room. You can do some fun chairs instead. Please go see them. They really are good folks. Look for the blue door at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
From the University of Phoenix Stadium, just outside of Glendale, Arizona, is where I'm standing in the parking lot to do the weather this morning. Hi, everyone. Got cloud today, and then you start to rock and roll tomorrow. When I say rock and roll, we got precipitation in the form of rain and also possibly snow. It will take you all the way to Saturday night. And when it's over and said and done, you got a nice day on Sunday. Temperatures definitely going to be cooler. You'll be in the 30s when the snow hits the ground. 40s right now for today. I see some wind issues today. Wind gusts possibly to 31 miles an hour. But other than that, enjoy the day, enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. Michael Rogers weather brought to you by our friends at Cheney Flooring and Home Design. Great hours, too, Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays 10 to 4. Located at 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley, Cheney Flooring and Home Design. As I keep telling you, look for the blue door. We got a lot of things to remind you of here this morning. First and foremost, don't forget to put it on your calendar that this Saturday, the 28th, at Morey's Steakhouse at 12 noon will be the start of the Minnecasia Lincoln Day Luncheon, and then they'll have the meet and greet first at 12 o'clock. You get a chance to ask all the politicals, questions, etc., and get answers. And then, of course, at 1 p.m., the dinner. So everybody try to be there. The Minnecasia Lincoln Day Luncheon at Morey's coming up on this Saturday. By the way, too, I want to say thank you. Valley-wide Home and Ranch with all the good folks over there. I mean, we're talking Sean and Mandy. They know what's going on. You better believe it. And they've got chick days coming to Valley-wide. And they've got all the supplies like the feed, the water dishes, houses for the chickens, fencing, anything you need for chick days. Here a chick, there a chick, everywhere. Wrong chick. Anyway, don't forget Chick Days will be March 11th through the 21st. And also all the 4-H clinics that are coming up. I will keep you posted on those clinics right here on Zeb at the Ranch. Valley-wide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. You stop in and see them today. Also, I am very, very blessed to have our dear friends Ramsey Heating and Electric as part of our entourage, as they have been for ever since this program started. And I'm pretty high on those folks. They mean a lot to me. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, 678-0459. Call ahead, and they'll have your order ready and waiting on the counter. You'd better be aware, 678-0459. They're open 7:30 to 5:30 Monday through Friday, and they've got all the light bulbs, all the lighting, everything you need to not be in the dark. Go to the light at Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Well, he did it. Obama made it official. Our wonderful, lackluster, lack of anything president vetoed the Keystone pipeline, as we had surmised, with the extreme lame excuse he wasn't going to be rushed into signing a bill that needs more study. Folks, please look through the smoke. Look away from the mirrors. Look at the man. Look at the ideology. Look at the party. Look at the absolutism towards the Greens, like Tom Steyer's and others. That's why he didn't sign this bill. It had nothing to do with the lack of study. This is one of the most studied bills, one of the most studied job sources ever in the history of America. Nobody, no group found anything negative about this Keystone pipeline, with the exception of Barack Obama. And even Democrats are absolutely frosted by what he did. the likes of Joe Manchin, and as we talked about with the other day with Gina, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Claire McCaskill, Missouri. They're trying to find support right now for an override on Obama's veto. And a poll put out yesterday, or possibly the day before, I'm not sure when they had this poll, but at least 65% of Americans said to go ahead with the pipeline, and Obama goes ahead and vetoes it. And you know what was really frustrating is that when he vetoed the pipeline, one of the words that came out in his speech about the pipeline was, I, meaning this is President Obama talking, I also take seriously my responsibility to the American people. Hogwash! Other words could be used and inserted at that point, but not on a radio program. So I'll stick with hogwash, his responsibility to the American people. If he had any responsibility to the American people, he would go ahead with the Keystone pipeline for the jobs, the easier access to make sure that we have lower energy prices, etc. Everybody's going to benefit from this. I've heard people call and say negative. No. This isn't the first pipeline in that area. It's one of many thousands that run through the central part of our United States. But this one, the most scrutinized, and absolutely would be the safest by far. This president has been bought off by the Enviros and the likes of Tom Steyers. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Appreciate you giving us a jingle. Denny's Restaurant, 611 Overland in Burley. Oh, man, I'll tell you what. You want to just treat yourself and maybe your lovely spouse and maybe your neighbors. Call your neighbors up and say, hey, we're going to go to Denny's. We'll buy. Oh, my goodness. They will shovel the snow off your walks. They will come. They'll do everything. They'll be so grateful that you took them over there where the food is delicious, and plenty of it, too, at 611 Overland in Burley, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You're going to love the food, love the service, and you're going to thank me for telling you about Denny's Restaurant, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. And don't forget, they've also got another new location of Denny's at 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. Denny's Restaurant. It's good. Also saying thank you very much to our friends at Berry Equipment and Rental. And I want to just remind you, this weather, yesterday going to Twin, I saw a whole bunch of people out planting grain and working the fields, and it is, you might as well just say it until all of a sudden we end up with 9 inches of snow. Springtime, and the farmers are out there, let me tell you, and everybody's getting ready for spring. Yep, and there's great specials at Berry Equipment and Rental on Coyote tractors and Bobcat loaders and Walker mowers and all the great financing. I tell you, it's time to get the jump on everybody else and be prepared. Why don't you stop in on South Lincoln in Jerome or Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, or their new location at 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Berry Equipment and Rental. Absolutely the best. All right, give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Like to hear from you. This is really upsetting to me about what's going on with Governor Scott Walker. He got blasted again, but I want to, wait a minute, back up the horse just a little bit here. In the Iowa polls, you know who is the front runner by a wide margin? It is Scott Walker. And guess who's way down in the middle of the pack? It's Jeb Bush. And to that I say, good. The old establishment I want to see get the gate this year. And I'm very, very much supportive of Scott Walker. Well, he got blasted again. Why, you say, did he get blasted? Well, because he prays. I'm not kidding. I was just absolutely beating my fist on my geezer chair when I heard about this. Some left-wing nut reporter, and that's what they are mostly, was all upset because Walker said the other day that he prays to God for guidance. So do I. So do I, and I'm proud of it. And this joke of a newsman, sounds like he had worked for the Times News previously, mocked his believing in God when he said he prays to God for guidance. Caller, good morning, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Zeb. Here we got a so-called president that's got a vendetta against the United States. I can't understand why he can't be relieved of his position. This is what bugs me. He's bringing us down day by day, destroying us from within, and he still keeps his office.
Well, Tony, you're asking me a question that I can't answer because I don't have the power to take him out of office or start a movement. But I'll tell you this. I think the Republicans have taken the gun out of the holster and shot themselves in both feet because they're not doing what we anticipated at the midterm elections. They're not showing the power. They're not showing the moxie or basically the guts to step up and make changes or try to make attempted changes. I think the whole doggone bunch is a bunch of cowards.
Well, these guys have been in office too long, and they think that nothing's ever going to touch them. They've got enough money to support them until the day they die, and the rest of us can just go to hell. I think that's what their attitude is.
Well, they've kind of loaded us on that freight car, haven't they?
They sure have.
All right, Tony.
It's okay. I won't take any more.
No, you're fine. I just, I agree with you on everything you said on this program, that the American public, and especially our Congress, show some spine, show some backbone. Come out and stop this slamming your fist down on the podium in front of the TV cameras and then 5 minutes later going out for a beer with the other side. I'm fed up with this. I don't want them to get along. I want them to fight for us.
These people are condemning Scott Walker because he's praying. Where are these guys coming from? They belong in the Soviet Union or up in North Korea somewhere. I don't understand.
Good location choice. Excellent vacation location choice. Thank you very much. Tony, God bless you, man. Thanks.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
I tell you what, coming out, and Scott Walker has the answers that I want to hear. Some not too bright of a light bulb that was pretty dim, even asked him a week ago about what he thought about Rudy Giuliani and what he thought about Obama's patriotism and what he thought about, is Obama a Christian? And you got to look at these reporters. These are set up questions. These are gotcha questions. And the way to answer them, in my opinion, is look right at the reporter and say, I don't know what's going on in their mind. Why don't you take the time and the effort to be a news reporter and go ask them, and then you'd have an exclusive. Don't ask me my opinion. It doesn't count. Ask them what they really are, and then give them the coldest of shoulders and walk away. News reporters in general today are not the brightest bulbs in the fixture. And they're trying for these gotcha moments. And that's what they're doing with Scott Walker. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. A dear friend of ours, Jeff Poole, over to Scouts Carquest Center in Rupert, man, I'll tell you what, that guy knows all about replacement products, accessories, supplies for virtually all vehicles. And I don't want to just give all the accolades to Jeff. They've got a staff of people at 3 locations that work for Scouts Carquest Centers that absolutely are the most knowledgeable about automotive needs. They've got 3 locations, 323 East 8th Street, Highway 25 in Rupert, 518 Overland in Burley, and the Big Scouts Truck Center at exit 211 I-84. And I'm telling you, every detail matters. Since 1949, Scouts are the best. That's not brag. That's a fact. Scouts Carquest Auto and Truck Parts, absolutely the best. All right, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. This next story, I'm probably going to carry this over into the next half hour. So I have a call first, and then we'll do the break at the bottom of the hour, and then I'll start my next story, which is extremely dangerous and serious. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
I've been watching that Keystone. You know what? Democrats You can't blame Republicans and Bush for all this crap. Blame what you got in the White House.
Oh, I do.
And, I tell you, we got to put a stop to it somehow, but until you get some backbone and guts and people back there in Washington, you're not getting a damn thing done until you get rid of that man out of that office.
Well, here's the deal. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, and Rita Ramsey, if you're listening, I apologize. I had a meeting to go to yesterday, and I couldn't call you. Tomorrow morning at 9:30, Mike Crapo is calling in, and the gist of the questions that I'm going to ask, and I've only got a short period of time. I'm not going to take any outside calls for that interview because I've only got 10 minutes. But the gist of what I'm going to ask him is, hey, Mike, we elected the change in the Senate and kept the change in the House with the Republican-controlled House and Senate. Why aren't you guys doing a tougher job against Obama? That's my main question to him tomorrow.
Well, they don't have the guts to do it. I mean, let's face it, they just don't have the guts to do it. They're all a bunch of baloney back there. They pat each other on the back and, oh, let's go have a beer, Joe. Yeah, you betcha. What about the American people?
Yeah.
If he's so damn worried about us, why don't he do something about it?
Amen. By the way, I just heard your lovely bride coughing, and if need be, we'll send over a truckload of cough syrup.
We got enough of that stuff.
Okay. God bless you, Al.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Polly, I hope you feel better. My goodness sakes, there's been a lot of that old crud going around, and I'm sorry to hear that. I want to remind you on Mondays that we have Sophie's Chatterbox Cinnamon Roll Giveaway. What are you talking about? Yes, a half dozen of the most delicious cinnamon rolls in the world. We give away when you answer a question, and of course that's the Sophie's Chatterbox, 530 East Street in Rupert. Oh my goodness, we've had some happy winners. You might be one of them, so don't forget. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner at Sophie's. Also a great bakery, cinnamon rolls, bread, rolls, all the pies, everything. Oh, it's good. Sophie's Chatterbox on the square in Rupert. Don't forget that question of the week on Mondays. It is time for the Capital Press Ag Minute, and brought to you by some great people at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology, and they're located right across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room, and the number 312-0957. Did you hear that? Well, if you have a hearing problem and you're going, what did he say, Martha? Well, don't forget, hearing loss is not a part of aging, and it's not an age problem, and it's very serious, and you can maybe have that adjusted and corrected. Please get a hold of Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Number again, 312-0957. Here now, the Capital Press Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
Cattle on feed numbers in large U.S. feedlots on February 1st at 10.7 million was slightly higher than last year's count. Placements into those feedlots in January were 11% below year-ago levels, and fed cattle marketed during January were down 9% below a year earlier. USDA's latest cattle on feed report, released February 20th, came close to industry estimates, which expected on-feed numbers to be down slightly. Marketings were down a tad from industry expectations, and placements were a little higher than expected, says ag economist Ron Plain with the University of Missouri. Placements this January were down for all weights of cattle except the heaviest. That reflects the lack of enthusiasm by cattle feeders. Cattle feeding was not at all profitable in January, he says.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and CapitalPress.com.
Don't forget, thank you very much, Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Number to call, 312-0957. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'm just so mad. I guess I can't think of another word I want to use right now. And frustrated over my phone going off in my pocket. Thank you very much. Now, this story that I'm about ready to relate, I just wonder when and if our President Obama will finally make a decisive action or movement to rid the world of the most worthless vermin walking the face of the earth, ISIS. Contrary to what he wants America to be, we still are the world leader. People look to us for help, aid, assistance, and everything else because we have been the world leader. And when I heard this story yesterday, and I'm not giving you an exaggeration, I'm telling you the straight truth, it brought tears to my eyes yesterday because Christianity is under siege. 150 women and girls, young girls, were kidnapped yesterday by ISIS. We don't know if they're going to be slaughtered. We don't know if they're going to be sold as slaves. We don't know what's happening to these people. 21 Egyptians that were Coptic Christians were beheaded, and their blood ran on the beaches into the water, thanks to ISIS. We saw a Jordanian pilot burned to death. I mean, it was such, I can't even tell you how grossly terrible it was to watch as they set the fire and it went into that cage and burned him. And all the other beheadings. These people, and I use that term, I can't think of other words I want to use because I might use curse words. ISIS, absolutely worthless to humanity. And the White House, after the kidnapping of 150 women and children that were Christians, said nothing. Nothing was said yesterday. And I don't want anybody to dare say that this is not an Islamic following. They call themselves Islam. They call themselves following the Quran. They call themselves to rid the infidels from the world. And yet we do nothing. I'm going to say this and I mean it. You, anybody out there in the audience, are a fool if you can't see what they are and what they represent. And absolutely this government, our president, John Kerry, the rest, must be fools. Because they will not point their finger at them and call them what they are. Are we that cowardly that this White House will not address the issue? Or is Obama that friendly to them and their cause being raised in those particular situations? Ask yourself all these questions. Now again, I don't like the man, never did. And back in 2007, leading up to the elections, I was called a racist by these knot-headed liberal left Democrats in this area. Even at the same time, as I've said before, I was supporting Condoleezza Rice to run for president. Same color of skin, but evidently the Democrats didn't realize that. I don't like anything this man is doing or not doing. And I see and agree with many of the reporters I've listened to on various newscasts over the last 24 hours that being a Christian is absolutely life-threatening now in the Middle East. And there might be an eradication of Christians. What then? Spain, Germany, the entirety of Europe, into the United Kingdom. Oh, and then spread here to the United States. Remember what the Imam said on that ABC television special? He sees the day when an Islamic flag will fly over the White House. If you're not worried about this, folks, you darn sure should be. And we should be demanding action. We should be calling Crapo's office and calling Rish's office and especially calling Simpson's office. He was the naive one, and we had the argument. Couldn't see anything wrong with the appointment of the Muslim Brotherhood into this administration. Mike, wake up. Your calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. If you don't agree with me, fine, give me a call. If you do agree with me, fine, give me a call. But let your voice be heard. Don't be, like Obama, cowardly. I want to brag a little bit on a man and his family and their bull sale, and that's Cordell Sheridan. I tell you, I really like this guy. He stopped by a couple of years ago, and we got to know him. And I'll tell you what, on March 7th at the Burley Livestock Yards, they're going to have the Sheridan Ranch 20th annual production sale. 20th annual. That says a lot for the quality of his bulls. Selling 70 head of bulls. They're Gelbvieh and Angus and Balancers. That's a Gelbvieh and Angus cross. And I'll tell you what, 15 head are coming 2-year-olds, 55 head big mature yearlings. And these bulls have been raised out in the country, up in the hills, on the rocks. They know how to travel. They know how to get by and do things. Absolutely. And their weaning weights are usually about 650 pounds or better. This is going to be a ripping good sale. And also free delivery up to 300 miles. Now, don't pass this up. Sheridan Ranch, 20th Annual Production Sale, March 7th, 1 p.m., Burley Livestock Sale Yards. For more information, call 824-5531. Okay? Don't miss it. Where's the calls? Where's the outrage? You don't think that it can happen here? You're not naive. I know my audience isn't naive. But you're not naive enough to think that it can't escalate to here in the States, here in Magic Valley, maybe down in the San Joaquin Valley in California. We can't have these cancerous vermin take over and start toeholds in our country. Think again. Think again. Because quite frankly, in some respects, they are already here. Give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, a little news note to go along with what we're talking about this morning with some of Obama's past friendships. This, I thought, was a little bit more than interesting. Remember Jeremiah Wright? Oh, Pastor Jeremiah Wright. Oh, yes, Obama attended his church for, was it like 20 years or something? Oh, well, I never saw him get radical. I never heard him get radical. Baloney. Well, it seems like there might be a little trouble running in the family of the Wright family because the daughter's in jail. Yeah. One of the daughters of Jeremiah Wright is in jail. You know what for? Money laundering. Oh, yes, it's true, Virginia. There is a money launderer in the Wright family. So here we go. Sometimes the apple doth not fall far from the tree. And the daughter of Jeremiah Wright in jail. Just thought I'd pass that along to you. Another little story, too, that this guy just doesn't know when to not keep his mouth shut, but know what to say in certain situations. Remember Keith Olbermann? Started with ESPN and then was let go, and nobody at ESPN liked him. I know behind the scenes, a lot of the announcers and the stage crew and the camera people, they did not like Keith Olbermann. And then remember, he went to the networks and he tried to do a network newscast and everything, and pretty soon he got dumped from that because, again, put his foot in his mouth. He did it again. Yeah, Keith Olbermann got dumped from ESPN as of last night, and I don't understand all the circumstances that led up to his dismissal, except that, for some strange reason, he started texting and tweeting with some Penn State University students, and he just came out and told them that they were the lowlifes of society and that they were going to a dumb school and everything. You don't do that when you're in a position such as his. And so I think he got the gate from ESPN, and this probably will be the last hurrah for Keith Olbermann. You'll probably hear him probably trying to do laxative commercials on TV or something. He is hurting for a job right now. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Another story that we wanted to talk about this morning, and that's, of course, the Eddie Ray Rauch story. And, of course, Eddie Ray Rauch, was the killer of our two servicemen, and that was, of course, the great American heroes. I just absolutely shudder to think a man like Eddie Ray Rauch on a shooting range with Chris Kyle and also Mr. Littlefield, and turning the gun on them at point-blank blunt range and killing them with 13 shots. He was found guilty last night, and no parole, a life sentence. The jury deliberated for 2 hours only, came back and said, that's it, he's guilty. And one text that was released on the news this morning kind of said it all, is that Eddie Ray Rauch going to Texas prison might not last a whole lot longer in prison, because even prison inmates recognized and realized the great hero value of Mr. Littlefield and Chris Kyle. And this text said that he may have a real hard time adjusting in a Texas prison. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, my friend.
Hello, Kilt Man.
Hey, this is one of those items that just drives me nuts. The guy, with all the witness and that, killed somebody. He admits to doing it. They give him life without parole. Just execute him and be done with it, instead of charging us, what is it, $50,000-$60,000 a year to house this guy for the rest of his life. That's not doing anything.
Well, no, stop right there for a second, Kilt Man, because I want to agree with you in totality. I don't know what the prison costs are in Texas, but I would imagine someone that is in there for life, you're looking at, I think the costs are higher down there. I remember looking at a chart one time as to what it costs to house an inmate for an annual figure, and I believe Texas was at $80,000+ a year. So I agree with you in its entirety. I'm in favor of the death penalty, absolutely, when it costs the American taxpayers literally millions and millions and millions of wasted dollars to keep these people housed on death row.
Exactly right. You know, yeah, he's not even on death row. He's there for life, period. Yeah. He's not even on death row, which is asinine in my mind. These people, you know, there's no reason to just let them sit there and vegetate for the rest of their lives while we're paying for them to just eat and goof off.
You know, and here's something of the trial that's a little bit unique to other trials. He came out on, 2 or 3 different occasions and admitted the crime, admitted the shooting, admitted the murders. So it's not like you're looking at an appeal to prove his innocence. He admitted he's guilty.
Exactly. You know, it's things like that. It's like these ones that they catch everything on video, you know, that, you know, there's no doubt that they did it, and they do this.
Yeah.
There's no reason that person, as far as I'm concerned, will lose all his rights, period, and doesn't deserve anything else.
And while being
send him into the grave.
I agree. The incarceration factor and the cost factor, and now the appeal factor, and he'll be living, even though he's in life per prison for the duration of his life, he'll be living in some respects almost like in a resort atmosphere. And this is really bothersome to me, that this man took 2 lives, and basically, even though it's going to be in quote-unquote incarceration, he's coming off pretty easy.
Well, that, and they're going to want more money and everything else because they got to take care of all these people. They've got to get bigger and bigger. They're turning into like the government.
Yeah.
All they need is keep throwing money at it, and they're not doing anything.
Well, you're like I am. I mean, there is absolutely no appeal in the court system that would show any innocence. There is no innocence. And he pled guilty and pled that he had committed the murders, and so I'm like you. The death penalty should be in effect and should not have been taken off the table, and we should not have to pay $80,000+ a year for his existence.
Exactly. If they did that, we'd probably cut our prison population in half.
I can't argue that. Kilt, man, it's good to hear from you. God bless. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's just ridiculous what the penal system in America has become and how expensive it is. And we, the taxpayers, I mean, the numbers are astronomical. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'm going to do a really quick weather forecast right now, brought to you by Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls, in Old Town, historic Old Town, Twin Falls, since 1936. Absolutely. By the way, $50 off a case of 100 rounds of ammunition when you buy an AR modern sporting rifle. Oh my, they've got them all right there at Red's Trading Post. The best of guns, ammo, and accessories, and the best of knowledgeable people, all there at Red's Trading Post in Twin Falls. Here now, Michael Rogers weather.
Mostly sunny skies for today, but it is going to be windy out of the west, 10 to 20 miles an hour, gusts possible over 30. Expect a high right near 51 for today. Tonight, partly cloudy, early followed by cloudy skies overnight, looking at a low right near 30. Winds will continue out of the southwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. For tomorrow, we are expecting mostly cloudy skies in the morning, slight chance of snow showers as well, and it's going to be breezy, high of 44 tomorrow night, mostly cloudy, low near 26.
That wasn't Michael, but that was the lovely voice of Gina. I'm sorry, Gina. And that's the weather brought to you by Red's Trading Post, 203 5th Avenue South in Twin Falls. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about correctional institutions. I remember growing up and watching old westerns where you stole a horse, you got hung, you know. Yep. And that's a little extreme maybe, but it also put the fear into a lot of people. You know, that if you break the law, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you kill somebody, this is what's going to happen. And I think it not only would it empty out our prisons, but it also changed some people's minds. Maybe give them a second chance to have a second thought about committing a crime before they went ahead and just did it.
You know, you bring up a really interesting avenue on crime and crime prevention and incarceration. You know, the old days of the West with Judge Roy Bean, law west of the Pecos, anybody that was a bad guy, quote unquote, and went before Judge Roy Bean, they kind of were going to have their boots off the ground with a rope. And it did eliminate a lot of the problems in that respective area. Now, I'm not saying to go to that extreme either, but somehow in this country we have to reestablish the fear factor so that the bad guys are really worried about A, committing the crime, or B, getting caught for the crime.
You know, and here's another thing that gets me, just bothers me, really irritates me. When they're talking about lethal injection, and putting people to death on this road, but it wasn't humane. It was painful for him. What do you think happened to them, to his victims? Do you think that he killed them painlessly?
Yeah, the point you're making right now, Riley, is an extremely good point, because so many times, and it's a shame that when they sentence these people for their heinous crimes, the victims and what happened to the victims and how they died and what was the crime itself is never really brought out in front of people, and I think that's a shame. You really bring a good point there.
It bothered me. One that got me was a guy, he did horrible things to an 11-month-old baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what he did to her, unspeakable.
Yeah.
And when they wanted to put him to death with lethal injection, his family and everybody else threw a fit because they were worried about it being humane to him. What about that 11-month-old little girl?
Amen.
Here's my thinking about it.
Amen. I could not agree more. Riley, it's good to hear from you and brought up a good point this morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, Eddie Ray Routh, I mean, my goodness, killing two people at close range with high-powered rifles and admitting to the police, yes, I did it. I wished I wouldn't have. I did it. And now he's going to live a life behind bars, but really kind of in a resort atmosphere. He will not be turned away anything that he wishes and desires. You can bet on that. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, this goes back to jury selection. I don't believe in a crime where the death penalty is possible if convicted, that during jury selection that people that do not believe in the death penalty should be allowed on the jury.
How are you, as a lawyer, trying to select that jury, how are you going to know if those thoughts are not really brought out by someone?
Well, every jury is interviewed.
I know. And
hopefully they're honest about it.
Yeah.
And this is a question they ask. And I just feel that, if we're going to try people honestly for the crimes they committed, then they should be available to have the maximum sentence available.
I absolutely agree with you, but now let me ask you this, and you know this is true. How old are you, if you don't mind my asking?
78.
All right. In your 78 years, you personally have seen a marked transition away from the death penalty and actually away from punishing the bad guys the way they should be punished. Would you agree with that or not?
Yes, I have.
And what are your thoughts on it? We need to get back to some kind of a law enforcement that's going to make them get real nervous about doing the bad stuff.
Well, I don't believe that the worst execution is that much of a deterrent to somebody that is really going to commit a crime. I would think that most people are going to commit a crime, not being a criminal, I can't say for sure, but I would think that they plan it out, that they don't plan on getting caught. But I do believe that, hanging was one of the most humane executions you could have if it was done correctly.
Yeah.
Because it broke the neck, quickly.
Absolutely.
But, so then they went to the electric chair, which is a horrible, horrible way to die, but very effective. And I didn't see anything wrong with that because most of the people that went there deserved it.
But let me interrupt you there and ask you this. Why are we as a society today more concerned about the humane treatment of the bad guy than we were of his treatment and murder of the poor victim?
I can't answer that honestly. I have the same question. I don't know why we're concerned more with the executioner or the person that executed the crime than we are for the victim.
It just makes no sense to me that whether it's Manson or any of these terrible, heinous perpetrators of murders and crimes, why there's always this liberal, oh no, that poor man, why they're going to put him to death. Why? When he or she slaughters or knifes to death or shoots to death or whatever the case might be, the poor victim and the families and the residual effect of how they're going to be affected for years.
I agree wholeheartedly. We should this life imprisonment. I mean, that should be a very unique situation.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a sentence, a common sentence.
Myself,
people that should be in prison for the rest of their life. If they're that bad, get rid of them. They're not good to society.
Absolutely.
And what they did was against society.
I could not agree more, and sir, I appreciate your call, and thank you for listening. Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you so much.
Okay, good.
You bet. Thank you. Wow, it just doesn't make sense. Don't forget your founder celebration going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers in honor of Mr. Les Schwab. What a nice gentleman. And as I've said in past broadcasts, I really do relish the time that I had a chance to meet him up in Prineville, Oregon, and spend a little time with him, talking to him, getting to know him, quite frankly. Well, the founder celebration is going on right now, and you can stop into any one of the 7 Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers in this area, and they serve you. Absolutely all-season tread, economically priced tires, some as low as $39.99. I'm not kidding. And also, you can save $50 off custom wheels when you buy a new set of 4. Oh, dress that 4-wheeled wonder up. All the front-end alignment, shocks, and struts, the best in-brake service, you better believe it, with Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, and of course, Mike and Jerome, Twist Family and Paul, John on Poline and Twin Falls, and old Randy on Overland and Burley, the best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Now, we've got a little change this next hour, and I want to alert you to that. On Wednesdays, normally we have Doug Johnson from Colorado call in, and Doug, I'm assuming a little bit under the weather today, and we couldn't get him on. So what we did is called the Heartland Institute back in Chicago, Illinois, and got a hold of the man, James Taylor, and we're going to discuss absolutely what the effect of stopping and vetoing the Keystone pipeline is. We're going to talk to him at 9:06. Then at 9:30, we're going to talk to Kyla Hogan with the Mustang Heritage down in Texas, and about the upcoming event again this year. It was a huge success up in the Nampa area last year. Okay? All of that. Then at 10:06 this morning, Cassia County School Board talking about the bond. So we got all kinds of things coming up on Zeb at the Ranch. I'll see you in 6. Oh, good morning. Welcome back. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell. Good morning to you, and thanks to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and along with our dear friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
I'll tell you what, locally owned and operated Western Waste Services, always at your disposal, and they really take those words to heart, always at your disposal. Whether it's the weekly service of pulling up and dumping your great big trash buckets into that truck, or whether it's the dumpsters, whether it's the porta potties, they are, commercially and residentially, always at your disposal. Give them a call today, 734-6969. That's the number to call, Western Waste Services. Thank you very much. Good people over there. Kelly and the crew. In just a minute, we're going to have a very interesting gentleman on our program. I always look forward to visiting with him, and that, of course, is James Taylor with the Heartland Institute. But first and foremost, let's not forget Hanson Mortuary. I say thank you very much to Joel Heward, his staff, and how they treat people. They are absolutely the nicest folks and so conscientious, always upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Very flexible hours, and giving you and your family the attention with the arrangements that you need. Please give them a call today, 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert. Thank you very much. All right, now let's go to the phone lines. And I want to start things off this morning by saying to this gentleman, at the last minute, I called him this morning and I said, please, due to the fact of the veto power of President Obama on the Keystone pipeline, would you please come on our program? And he said he would, and I really appreciate it. Senior Fellow for Environmental Policy with the Heartland Institute, James Taylor. James, good morning, sir. How are you?
Well, good morning, Zeb. Doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's always my pleasure because of your knowledge and your straightforwardness. The bottom line on this issue is, James, is something that I read in the paper this morning as a quote from Barack Obama. And I want to start off with this quote in his reasoning for vetoing the Keystone Pipeline. He said, and I quote, "I also take seriously my responsibility to the American people." James, that is one of the most infantile statements I've ever heard. If he was really concerned about the American people, he would have signed this thing in an okay a long time ago. Your thoughts?
Right. This is a quadruple hit on the American people. He's not looking out for our interests. He's attacking our interests. By vetoing the Keystone XL pipeline, what President Obama has assured is that, first of all, we're going to have thousands of jobs that can, should, and would have been created are not going to occur, so it's going to hurt our employment situation. Second, he's going to ensure that energy prices are higher than they need to be because we're going to have this low-cost Canadian oil no longer available. Third, we are going to increase our dependence on foreign oil, foreign meaning beyond just ourselves and our neighbor to the North Canada, but to dependence on Middle Eastern nations that are openly hostile to America, to its interests, to democracy. And fourth and finally, this is a hit on the environment in our country, ironically enough, because a pipeline would allow the transport of oil in a manner that's emissions-free. Now what's going to happen is we're going to have Canadian oil shipped to their coast, to their Pacific coast, which is now going to be shipped to China. We're now going to get oil shipped to us from the Middle East with all the emissions from the boats, and then from the ports, we're going to have the oil transported via rail as opposed to pipeline. So in these four particulars, jobs, energy prices, national security, and the environment, all four are going to harm America and our interests. What this is nothing more than a temper tantrum to basically protest the fact that, well, we do use oil in our modern society. This is global warming alarmists, environmental activist groups biting off their nose to spite their face, and the American people are the ones paying the price.
Let me ask you this, James. The Democrats are so quick to come out and condemn with hate-filled diatribes against the Koch brothers, saying, oh, well, they're buying the Republican Party, they're doing this and that. But now here's a classic case of billionaire Tom Steyer's getting involved with the Keystone Pipeline on behalf of the Enviros, and nobody on the right seems to be pointing their finger at Tom Steyer's like they do the Koch brothers from the other side.
Right, Tom Steyer, who gave approximately $100 million to Democratic candidates in the last round of elections. And one of the conditions is that they oppose the Keystone Pipeline. So this is politicians that are paying back favors. And another one that you didn't mention is George Soros.
Right.
George Soros is the owner of the BNSF Railroad, which transports most of the oil in our country from the region that the Keystone XL pipeline would operate. By blocking Keystone XL, George Soros has ensured that he has a near virtual monopoly on oil transport in the region. This is something that the press apparently just doesn't either have the knowledge or the inclination to report.
Let me go on to the political side on this for a moment, James. I know that West Virginia, Joe Manchin, Democrat, Claire McCaskill, Missouri, Democrat, they were trying to gain support possibly for an override of this veto by the president. Is there any hope or pie in the sky on that at all?
Well, I certainly applaud any Democrat or Republican who stands up for our economy, for our national security, for our environment by supporting the Keystone XL pipeline. I just have to say, though, it's rather curious that we have these Democrats that will say that they support this issue and other issues in which the Democrats seem to be out of touch with the American people up until the point that they're within a vote of overturning it, and then all of a sudden their support dries up. I'd like to see Joe Manchin and Claire McCaskill and others, if they really do believe in this, to have some influence on their Democratic colleagues. One would think that they'd be able to get their colleagues to listen to them. The facts, the arguments are all on the side of what Manchin and McCaskill say. So why can't they convince any of their colleagues? Are they really trying hard enough?
Do you think that the bill for the Keystone Pipeline is done, it's dead, it's a memory, it's history, or would there be any kind of hope for a resurgence of this bill prior to Obama leaving office?
Well, it's going to be very difficult because as long as President Obama is the president, he's made it implicitly clear that he is not going to allow the Keystone XL pipeline to be built. He keeps using the excuse of wanting more study, more delay. This pipeline has been studied for a longer period of time than it took us to fight and win World War II. I mean, how much time do we need to say, okay, should we have a pipeline or not? His own State Department has already signed off on it and said this is a good idea. But Obama makes excuse after excuse after excuse to put it off. And I suspect that before he leaves office, he will formalize his opposition so that it will be even tougher for a successor president to approve the Keystone XL pipeline. And that's really what it's going to take. It's going to take the next president to either support the pipeline or at least not veto the pipeline because the votes in Congress are sufficient to approve the pipeline.
James, when you look at Canada and the oil sands being shipped, okay, now they've lost possibly this opportunity without the Keystone Pipeline. They're going to sell it to somebody, and probably it's going to go to China and or Russia will benefit from this. Is there opportunity in the future that they would look at, again, us, the neighbors to the south, and reopen the idea of taking their oil sands?
Well, it becomes more and more problematic for Canada to build the pipeline and sell the oil to us as time goes by because they have the product now. They need to bring the product to market. And they want to have certainty as to having a customer and having a market. And it takes investment to transport the oil from the fields in Western Canada to the West Coast, to the Pacific Coast, to transport them to China. China's going to want longer-term contracts. What we're seeing now is that we're setting up a routine and a procedure and the infrastructure by which China is going to be the recipient of this oil rather than the United States of America. And oh, by the way, to the extent that environmental activists claim that it's so bad that this oil is being used at all, the environmental safeguards and protections in China are much more lax than they are in the United States. If this oil were being delivered to the United States, it would be used in a much more environmentally responsible manner than it's going to be used now that the Keystone XL pipeline has been put on mothballs.
James, you are an expert on climate change and what's happening around the world and what's happening or trying to be forced upon us here in this United States. Is this something of grave concern that the pipeline was not passed and it's going to possibly lead to other stepping stones that this administration, before they leave office, is going to try to force upon us for environmental hazards against climate change? What are your thoughts? I mean, the overall picture before Obama leaves.
Yes, it is a frightening precedent, and it shows that this administration and this president feels that, well, there are no more elections that I need to participate in. There are no more elections that are going to affect my presidency, so I might as well just do what I want to do without any regard to what the American people think. And in the past, where the president would hem and haw about what his true intentions were and would hold back on some of his most extremist programs because of fear of political backlash, now he just has, I think he just has absolutely no care or concern. And we see this on the global warming front, where just in the news this week, you have the State Department putting pressure on India, as if we haven't ticked off enough of our friends and allies around the world for silly reasons already. Now we have in India, our embassy is going to be monitoring the air quality in India, posting reports telling people in India how dangerous their air is, embarrassing and pressuring the government to do something, all in the name of, quote, safeguarding our employees at the embassy in India. This is ridiculous. Why are we going out of our way to poke India in the eye, poke other nations in the eye? India is just the first step because of this global warming environmental activist
mentality that is just not supported by sound science.
Let's talk a little bit about Congress, and I'll state my case against Congress, and then I'd like to hear your opinion. I, during the midterm elections, was very excited, if you will, that the Republicans took over the Senate and that they maintained their seats and gained a little bit, even in the House. But I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing a program. I'm not seeing a direct frontal attack. I'm not seeing them do anything to really help perpetrate a conservative cause in this country. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, two thoughts. First of all, the Republicans in Congress and the National Republican Party is absolutely terrible at messaging. I don't know how they can do this time and time again where they just blow it in terms of, look, you have the opportunity in Congress to use the power of the purse to, at the very least, force the president into compromise, if not outright change his policies. And yet, the Republicans, not only do the media frame the issue this way, but the Republicans themselves go along with it, that, for example, if the Congress were to condition funds for some of the president's programs on approving the Keystone XL pipeline, and the president says, no, I'm vetoing it, rather than saying, okay, well, the president's the one who shut down this program by vetoing legislation. Oh, no, the Republicans shut it down by passing a law that they knew Obama would veto. And they allow that language, that message to prevail, and they themselves utilize it also. So that's the first area. The second area in which it's so disappointed, in which I'm so disappointed in the Republican Congress, is they have this, many of the Republicans, enough to keep things from moving along, have this mentality that, well, now that we're in the majority, we need to do everything possible to lay low so that so we don't have controversial issues that might come back to haunt us in the 2016 election. So after 2016, if we have the presidency and both houses of Congress, then we'll become more conservative. Well, that's garbage, because they told us that would be the case if they were elected in 2014 to take over Congress. And remember what happened the last time we had a Republican president and Republicans controlling both houses of Congress. We had the type of big government, quote-unquote, moderate liberal republicanism that led to such programs as Solinger, which, by the way, was started under George W. Bush, that led to ethanol mandates, that led to all sorts of programs that are anything but conservative. And Republicans need to live up to their promises that they made before being elected.
As you look into a crystal ball, if you will, that you know more about energy than I would, what are your thoughts? I mean, are we looking at a lull in pricing that all of a sudden is going to jump up and bite the consumer again, with possibly gas prices going up $3, $4, $5 a gallon and transportation costs escalating? What are your thoughts as you look at the last 2 years of this Obama administration?
I would be very surprised if gasoline prices in the near future, or even in the midterm and long-term future, rise to the levels that we have seen. The only way that's going to happen is if government gets involved and screws things up based upon political agendas. Because what we have right now is, due to advances in technologies and new discoveries of oil and natural gas and shale rock formations, we now have so much more oil and natural gas that we can produce and are producing than was the case in the past. And that increased production is so large that it is severely impacting in a positive way global supplies. And it's simple supply and demand. As long as the United States is going to maintain this level of production, then it's very difficult for prices to rise. Now, this administration has done everything possible to thwart that increase in production. In fact, the Obama administration has reduced the number of permits and the amount of oil and natural gas produced on federal lands. But on state-owned land and private-owned land, this is where we're seeing the increase in production. And by the way, we're not going to run out of oil and natural gas anytime soon. And even if we did, which would be centuries from now in terms of feeling a pinch, we also have methane hydrates, which are closely related to natural gas. We have more methane hydrate resources around the globe than oil and natural gas put together, and that would be our next several centuries from now energy source. We don't have anything resembling peak oil or downward spirals in oil and natural gas supplies. There's no reason for prices to rise absent government screwing it up through misguided policies.
James, final thought here this morning, but you work with this every day regarding climate change, formerly called global warming. And after what the East Coast and the Midwest has been in for a severe winter this year, what are the thoughts of people that you have to work with in regards to climate change? What are their theories now looking at the severity of winter on the East Coast?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because just about 10 minutes before coming on air, I posted on my weekly Fords.com column an article about the record cold and snow and how this absolutely repudiates alarmist global warming claims. So I hope listeners will look that up. You can do a Google search, Taylor Forbes record cold global warming, it'll turn up. But the importance of this is that the alarmists, first of all, claimed that global warming would cause winter temperatures to be much warmer and fewer snow events. Well, now that we see year after year colder and snowier winters, in fact, objective data show U.S. winter temperatures have been declining for 20 years. Now they try and claim, oh, well, global warming is causing this. It's causing colder and snowier winters. Well, first of all, it's not what they said beforehand. Their own prior statements indict what they're saying now. Second, their theory that global warming causes more snow is contradicted by common sense and real-world facts. They claim that warmer air allows the air to hold more moisture, which results in more snowfall. Except we know for a fact that winters have been getting colder for 20 years. So if we have colder temperatures, you can't claim that global warming is causing more snowfall. This is something that is an embarrassment. They're doing everything possible to misdirect people and hoping that people will forget what they've been claiming for years now. That global warming will cause warmer winters with very little snow. You know, and the other point that bears keeping in mind is that these cold, snowy winters prove the fact that even to the extent that global warming is and will occur in the future, if temperatures warm by a fraction of 1 degree, it's not going to cause changes that people are going to notice. They may try to motivate people into hysteria, but a warming of less than 1 degree is not going to cause the polar ice caps to melt. It's not going to cause alligators to live in Montana. It's not going to cause all these catastrophes that they claim. Basically, we won't even notice. And we're seeing that in winter after winter here.
James, final thought here real quick. I've only got a minute left, but your thoughts about how can we change the thinking? It seems like it goes all the way down into the kindergartens and the grade schools, the high schools, the colleges, this leftist thinking that, oh, we're all going to burn up by next Tuesday. How do we change that?
Well, people who are listening to your show know to think for themselves, to find the right information. It's available on the Internet. It's available on your program. It's available now much more so than was the case 40, 50 years ago. We can access information. We can contact our elected representatives. We can write. We can participate in the media, writing letters to the editor, calling into radio shows, etc. I believe the truth will win out, and thanks to shows like yours, it will.
I can't thank you enough. And again, on short notice, the Senior Fellow for Environmental Policy at the Heartland Institute, James Taylor. Thank you, James, and please come back soon.
Thank you, Zed.
Thank you, sir. I want to say again how much I appreciate it. I called him early this morning, and he had not yet got into his office, and I asked him, I said, please, with the vetoing of the Keystone pipeline, would you come on the air this morning and talk to me about that veto and about climate change, etc.? And I just really appreciate him. You're talking and have been listening to one of the foremost authorities on fighting these climate change kooks, and Senior Fellow for Environmental Policy at the Heartland Institute in Chicago, Illinois, James Taylor, and I very much respect him for coming on my program this morning. Oh my goodness, we've got to pay some bills. How about let's talk a little bit about Let's Ride. Highway 24 between Rupert and Hayburn. Oh my goodness sakes. They have got rebates on dirt bikes right now. Great time to buy. And you're talking about a selection. When you get over there and walk in the showroom, holy smokes, you're going to sit back and go, my goodness, how did they get everything parked in here? All the ATVs, all the dirt bikes, all the accessories, everything for you at Let's Ride. And don't forget the service department, ready to take your four-wheelers and get them all serviced and ready to go for this spring. You bet Scott and the crew can help you. Let's Ride, Highway 24 between Rupert and Hayburn. Yep, where the fun is sold. You stop over and see them today. While you are on Highway 24, I want to remind you to stop over also to Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Yep, life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and more for you through our dear friends Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens. Very dedicated and responsive to your needs, always accessible to helping you. Number to call for an appointment, 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. I've got just a minute here before we go to our next guest, and I want to remind you about the Minnecasia Lincoln Day Luncheon, which is going to be coming up this Saturday at Maury's Steakhouse in Burley. That's February 28th, this Saturday. And it's a great opportunity if you have questions or if you've got gripes, to meet the politicals and just sit there and talk to them. The meet and greet starts at 12 noon and then at 1 p.m. lunch. And I just absolutely urge you to be a part of this luncheon. Minnecasia Lincoln Day Luncheon at Maury's coming up this Saturday. Don't you miss it. Well, we have just a second here before we get our next guest on the program. I also want to remind you about Parkview Rehabilitation and Care Center. Now, what is it? Well, first of all, it's a medical nursing service for seniors with serious illnesses or disabilities 24 hours a day. Parkview Care and Rehabilitation. And you know what? They have won that 5-star rating from the government. That is the highest rating awarded to skilled nursing facilities, so you know it is absolutely great. They never forget, never, that you're the valued guest and the reason that they're there. You better believe it. Parkview Rehabilitation and Care Center. Call today. Talk to them. 677-3073. That number again, 677-3073. Parkview Rehabilitation and Care Center, 2303 Park Avenue in Burley. You probably heard the horns going off. The start of the race. And Gina just sent me a note. And Gina, get on the microphone. Tell me what you want.
Who's telling you your next guest is ready?
You are so efficient. And, I keep forgetting every day to turn down the tone on that thing. And every time that call to the race starts, I'm ready to jump up and run to the rail.
I heard it, and I'm like, oh, he got my text.
I can't help but giggle because you scared me to, well, never mind. I won't tell you what almost happened.
Well, honestly, I scare you like that at least a couple of times throughout the show anyway.
Well, your efficiency is to be applauded, but then also it causes great health concerns for me.
Through the tactic of communication.
There you go. Thanks so much. And now as we giggle and laugh our way through the segment this morning, we're ready to talk to a very, very nice lady down in, I believe, Georgetown, Texas. Love that area of Texas. And the lovely Kyla Hogan with the Mustang Makeover. Good morning, Kyla. How are you?
Hi, Mr. Bell. It's good to talk to you again. How have you been?
Oh, my goodness. First thing, we got to set some rules. Don't call me Mr. because it makes me feel like an antique. Just call me Old Zeb, okay?
I completely forgot about that rule.
Okay.
We established that last summer, but it's been a while.
Absolutely. Well, now listen, it doesn't matter how I am, but I want to tell you, first and foremost, that the Extreme Mustang Makeover held at the Ford Idaho Horse Park up in Nampa last year, I was very impressed. It takes a lot to impress an old fat rodeo announcer like me, but you folks really did an outstanding job, so kudos to you.
Well, thank you. We had a great time, and, everybody was supportive, and the trainers did an excellent job, so we're excited to return in 2015.
All right, now let's give a little background, if we could, Kyla. Tell my audience basically what is the Extreme Mustang Makeover.
Sure. We seek youth and adult trainers to basically take the ultimate training challenge. We assign them a random wild horse. We give them 100 to 120 days to gentle and train and prepare that animal for competition, and then we all meet back up. For example, this is at the Fort Idaho Horse Park to do 2 days of competition, a freestyle finals, and then the adult horses are also available to the public for adoption at the conclusion of the event.
Okay, now last year, why don't you give kind of a recap to my audience as to what happened last year and how many horses were involved?
Last year, I believe we were right at 27 or 28 horses, and we had 9 or 10 youth, which I thought was great for a first-time event. I hope that we spark some interest, and we'll add to that this year. But like I said, the youth and adults compete in preliminary classes. The youth only show the horses in hand. Everything is done from the ground, and then the adults do ride the older horses in those classes. And we try to produce a good all-around horse that has the basic maneuvers. You can go do a simple reining pattern on him. He's been exposed to obstacles, and we try to give these horses a great start so they can have continual education in their new home and a good start for the adopter.
You know, I'm sorry, I've neglected to put the information on my desk this morning about the winner last year, but I'll tell you what, there were 2 horses out of the multitude of horses that were there that absolutely, I was awestruck as to how well they were trained and the various things that could be done on these horses. I mean, man, you're only talking a short period of time for these people to work with them.
It's a very short period of time, and if you sit and think that they're actually working with a horse that has had very limited contact with humans at all, and so they're given a blank slate, not a baby that was halter broken when he hit the ground and turned out. These horses are virtually a clean slate when they arrive at the trainer's house.
Now, what about the training for this year, especially for the activity coming up here in Idaho on July 24th and 25th in Nampa? Are you in need of trainers?
We are actually looking for trainers still. The deadline is this Friday, February 27th. If anyone is interested, we have a simple application process in which their horse history is reviewed, and we also ensure their facilities are safe enough to house a wild horse when they first bring these horses home. Like I said, those are due this Friday, February 27th. You can fax or email those, and as long as they're postmarked by the 27th, we can still accept those for consideration. And, you know, one thing that's overlooked sometimes at these events, we do offer a youth division for those that are 8 to 17 years old. And they do adopt their horses before the event, so there's not an adoption offered at the event for the youth kids, but they take the horses home after the event and continue with them.
Okay, so now this Friday is the closeoff date for the trainers, so we want to urge everybody within the sound of our voices to get a hold of the Extreme Mustang Makeover. Now, can you give us a telephone number and a website that they can call or contact?
Yes, you're welcome to call us at 512-869-3225, and we will be happy to answer any questions for you. If you're able to visit our website, extrememustangmakeover.com, and just click on the Idaho event page, you'll find complete rules and regulations for the adult and youth divisions, and the entry applications are also available to download there on the Idaho event page at extrememustangmakeover.com.
Now, Kyla, tell me this. Last year the first year that you tried the Extreme Makeover in Nampa? That was the number 1 year?
Yes, that was our first visit to Nampa, and like I said, we were very pleased with the event. We had a great group of spectators for the Saturday evening finals performance, and the horses did really well at the adoption. So we were very thankful for the people of that area, and we hope that they'll return this year. The event is scheduled for July 24th and 25th.
Right.
So just around the quarter. Like I said, the trainers, the applications are due February 27th, and they will actually pick their horses up the weekend of April 10th. So that's always an exciting time when the trainers meet the horses they'll work with for the next 100 days.
Now, let me ask you this next part, Kyla, as far as now, I know that you had extreme makeovers in other regions and other locations. How did they go over to the general public? Was there a perception of, holy cow, how did they do that with a wild Mustang? What was the general reaction?
You know, I love to see people's first reactions to the event because, like you said, it's hard to get a lot done with a domesticated horse in 100 days that is completely unstarted, untrained. But these horses have a little different approach to them. Their herd instincts are a lot stronger. They tend to be a lot more sensitive and reactive. And so our trainers are pretty much amazing. And we couldn't do this program without them. You know, the whole goal of Mustang Heritage Foundation programs are to increase the number of successful adoptions of BLM's excess Mustangs. And it enables people to acquire a horse that is started, that is halter broke. In most cases, they're under saddle, and not everyone has the time or the ability to go pick up a fresh wild horse straight out of the corrals. And we like giving the opportunities to these people after the horses have had this 100 days of basic training to incorporate them into their families and hopefully make them a mainstay in their barn from here on out.
I think the
every time we visit a new area, we hopefully gain some more fans for these horses, and that's the whole point of our program here at Mustang Heritage Foundation.
I think the reason I was so awestruck is that when I'll revert back to the top two horses last year, to think that just basically 100+ days earlier they were running free on the desert someplace. It's absolutely amazing to think what these trainers did to make these animals not only excellent reining horses, but you could rope off of them. You could do a multiple amount of facets on these horses, and they were highly trained. It was just absolutely awesome.
Yes, and these horses are very intelligent. And our Mr. Matt Zimmerman, he is actually in Caldwell. I'm pretty sure he plans on competing again at the Nampa event to try to defend his championship. So it's amazing what they can do with these horses, and we're continually amazed at every event. There's always something new to see. So we're excited.
Well, now, what about the event itself on July 24th and 25th? Can you give us a little breakdown as to how the public can enjoy it, and what are the best times to go? What about tickets and that type of thing?
Yes. We typically start a day at the Extreme Mustang Makeover in the morning. And like I said, the adults have 3 preliminary classes they compete in, a simplified trail and reining pattern, and they also do what we call handling and conditioning, which involves catching the horse in the round pen and showing the groundwork that the horse has learned from the last 100 days. They have to compete in those 3 preliminary classes, and then we invite the top 10 from those preliminary classes back for the freestyle finals, which is always held Saturday evening, usually beginning at 6 p.m. And that is a ticketed event. The rest of the weekend is completely free. You can come and see the youth compete in 3 classes. They also do a freestyle performance, and that's something that they choreograph themselves, add music, they add props, and they completely develop the routine themselves. And the youth do an excellent job with the freestyle routine. They're very imaginative, and it's a lot of fun to see. But we will have stuff going on most of the day, both days. And like I said, the big finale is 6 p.m. Saturday evening. And at the conclusion of the freestyle performance and awards, the adult horses are offered for adoption to the public, and it's run much like your local horse sale. They will be brought in hip number order, and they will be awarded by competitive bid. And we always invite the BLM out. They're a big part of our event, and they're available to answer any questions. They can approve you for adoption there on site. Mr. Steve Leonard and his staff from Boise are an amazing group of people, and they're a great help to us. So you can come out and watch these horses. all weekend. And if you're interested in adopting, it gives you a chance to learn more about that horse, visit with the trainer, get approved there on site, and you can adopt Saturday evening. And like I said, that is the only part of our show that is ticketed. Tickets are $15, and you can pre-purchase those at ExtremeMustangMakeover.com. They'll also be available for sale at the door Saturday evening.
I am absolutely excited to go back and work with you folks again in July. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope that everything goes just as good as it did last year, because it was a wonderful event. And I want to say thank you to you, Kyla Hogan, for taking the time to come on our program this morning. And I'll reserve the right to ask you back prior to July, and we'll give it another shot in the arm and see if we can't get more people to come up and watch it. How's that?
That would be great. I appreciate you helping us spread the word. And like I said, if anybody's interested in participating, please give us a call or have your application in by February 27th, and we'll look forward to working with you.
All right. God bless you, and say hello to everybody, and we'll see you in July. Thanks, Kyla.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care. What an event. And at first, when I was asked to go up and announce this event, I didn't know that much about it. And my dear friend that lives in Burley, Kent Benson, with the BLM and has worked with the Wild Mustangs, called him and got a little bit more information, and then I called those folks back, and I was very proud to be a part of it up in Nampa last summer. Wow, it was outstanding. And it was jaw-dropping to think what these horses could do after only 100 days of training. And like I said, there were two that come to mind that, my wife and I, we appreciate a good horse and what it can do. And to sit there and watch what these horses were capable of over that 3 days that we were there last year, holy cow, is the best way to describe it. The Extreme Mustang Makeover this next July 24th and 25th in Nampa at the Ford, Idaho Horse Park. Don't miss it if you get a chance, and I think you'll be as awestruck as I was. Okay? Time for the weather, and then we'll take some more phone calls. The weather this hour brought to you by Urgent Care of Jerome, 133 West Avenue A, Suite B in Jerome. Number to write on your refrigerator or put it on the dust on the dash of the pickup, 324-2004. That number again, 324-2004. Minor emergencies, major care, and they will see you today. You better believe it, whether it's an ear infection, sinus infection, sprain, strain, fracture, whatever. They treat everyday injuries and illnesses. You be sure and call them at 324-2004, Urgent Care of Jerome, 133 West Avenue A, Suite B in Jerome. And right now, here's the weather.
Mostly sunny skies for today, but it is going to be windy. Out of the west, 10 to 20 miles an hour, gusts possible over 30. Expect a high right near 51 for today. Tonight, partly cloudy, early followed by cloudy skies overnight. Looking at a low right near 30. Winds will continue out of the southwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. For tomorrow, we are expecting mostly cloudy skies in the morning, slight chance of snow showers as well, and it's going to be breezy, high of 44. Tomorrow night, mostly cloudy, low near 26.
That was an excellent forecast. Thank you, Gina. Urgent Care of Jerome, 133 West Avenue A, Suite B in Jerome. Don't forget, 324-2004. Minor emergencies, major care. Give us a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Gina, are you still there by your microphone for a second?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then plug in the tape recording of your voice and just say no. I have a question for you this hour.
Okay.
I think you and I politically are pretty close on our viewpoints. But yesterday I had a chance to listen to a Republican congressman that was asked about really going after the new Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter, and forcing his hand to be much tougher, forcing his hand to get something done, forcing his hand to have a scheme or a plan to get ISIS removed from the face of the earth. And here, this guy takes this kind of a comment, and I want you to respond to it. He said, well, wait a minute. He's only been in office a couple of weeks. Let's give him a couple of weeks more to settle in and then try to offer possibly at that time constructive criticism. And my point that I want you to respond to is tell the time wasting to the 21 Coptic Christians that were beheaded. Tell the 150 Christian women yesterday that were abducted by ISIS, or the Jordanian pilot's family where he was burned in a cage. Why are we giving so much time to these people?
You know what? I am baffled by that as well. The more media coverage, the more that we talk about them, the more we're giving them the power, basically, and that's what it is. And so I think that the way that the current administration is handling the whole ISIS crisis, basically, is they're not taking it seriously. Now, look at what Jordan is doing, and they're stepping up to the plate, and they're not going to be putting up with that kind of stuff anymore. A lot of other countries are saying, you know what, we're not going to be putting up with this kind of terrorism anymore. All of the other countries except for one. Well, that's us.
But here's my frustration, and I know I'm 67 years old and I've got a very short temper. Why sit there, do nothing, and say the idiocy of, well, we're forming a committee and we're arranging dates for hearings. Gina, I don't want any hearings. I don't want any dates scheduled. I want bombs and bullets after these vermin that are kidnapping Christians and killing them and beheading others. There is no time for all these silly, frivolous meetings and hearings.
Hey, President Obama, why don't you do this? You have an emergency meeting in the Oval Office. You decide within 15 minutes of how to eradicate this problem, and then go for it.
But it's both sides of the aisle. You can't point your fingers just at the Democrats and blame them for this attitude. I'm pointing my fingers at the Republicans, and I'm going to tell Mike Crapo that tomorrow morning.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I think that everybody within our congressional delegation, whether it be the Republicans, Democrats, Independents, I don't care. Everybody needs to come together on this quickly and decide quickly how to eradicate this problem, because it's only going to get worse. It's not going to go away, and by offering them jobs isn't going to make it better.
Oh, my goodness. My thinking on this whole Senate problem, Democrat, Republican, the House, Senate, Democrat, and Republican, whatever it might be, is that they're just CYAing their whole life. That's all they're doing. They're just covering your you-know-what, just to keep a job, and they're not getting the job done.
No. And they're just feeding their constituents, i.e. you and me, with a bunch of, well, what they think we would like to hear, but when they actually go back to, their office or their desk, they're not going to do anything, as has been proven. They have proven their track record that they're not going to do anything, so why do we keep on re-electing these people? I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Look at the energy situation. I mean, Obama vetoes the Keystone Pipeline. Mm-hmm. They have studied the Keystone Pipeline now for over 4 years. It has been studied, restudied 1,000 times. Even environmental groups say it would be the safest absolute pipeline ever because it's been so scrutinized. Yep. And the cost factors, the jobs that would be availed because of the Keystone Pipeline. And yet this president sits there with a smirk on his face and a political gain of saying, I'm going to really get the Republicans for what they did at the midterms, and he vetoes this. And then we hear nothing but lip service from the Democrats like Joe Manchin and Claire McCaskill, along with some Republicans going, well, we're going to try to show a show of force, and we'll try to bring this up again for a override on the veto. All it is time wasting. Get something done and do it now.
Yeah, honestly, and if you look at the big picture, this kind of hurts our international relations with Canada. Canada, they're kind of they're stalled on their project because we can't get ours done.
Absolutely.
I mean, this has a greater economic impact than just the United States. It's also impacting, our neighbors to the north as well. And so how is that going to affect our relations? They're going to move forward and they're going to start, figuring out other ways. And so we're going to miss out on those economic dollars because our Congress and our president can't get together and agree and approve this.
Why should they wait? Why should they lose income? And honestly, with the bad guys want the oil sands. That's China. And if they're going to build a pipeline and they're going to take it, Canada's got this for sale. Why should they not make money for their country? They've waited and waited and waited for the United States, their neighbor to the south, and they have done nothing but give them lip service, and they've delayed every approach.
Yeah. And so if I was, a Canadian official, I'd be like, You know, America, you guys seriously have X amount of time, and the clock is ticking. And by this date, if you don't make a decision, we're gonna take our money elsewhere. And that's exactly what they're doing. And honestly, that's what they should do. And I can't blame them for it.
Well, I just want to hear what some of my listeners think about this, because meetings, hearings, Senate committees, all that garbage, I am fed up with it.
Yeah, all it is bureaucratic red tape.
That's exactly right. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd love to have a call from you, so give me a jingle. While I'm waiting for your call that I'm sure is coming in, I want to remind everybody about the Chadwick Sports Grill. My goodness. Today, Wednesday, listen to this. Breaded pork loin cutlets with brown gravy, served with choice of potato, veggies, and super salad. It's absolutely fantabulous at the Chadwick Sports Grill. Breaded pork loin cutlets, I love them. And you will too. Check out all the great menu items at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, Zeb, you know, if we let that Keystone pipeline go through, just think how much money ISIS and Al-Qaeda and these groups would lose. They wouldn't be able to go out and kill Christians. I think that's what Obama's thinking. I think he's absolutely all for everything they're doing.
I can't give speculation.
I just can't go along with his way of thinking at all.
Well, I can't.
I'm not going to come to the Lincoln Day dinner because I'm afraid I would accuse some of our congressmen of being culprits along with him of trying to stop stuff that is ridiculous.
You know, Jerry, let me just say this. I never use, I'm not going to go because of as an excuse. You're one of my dearest friends, but I always look like and say that if I'm going to be somewhere in attendance, I'm going to bring it up the way I feel. And that's what's going to happen on Saturday. I'm going to go, I'm going to tell them how I feel about issues, and I'm never going to run away.
I don't think I could tell them. I would scream at them.
Well,
I am so upset with what's happening in our House and our Senate. I don't think I could contain myself. I think they'd probably haul me out in handcuffs.
Well, let's hope not, Jerry. Thank you for your call. God bless you, man. Thanks. I appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't like what's going on with our House and Congress either. I think it just makes me sick to my stomach that they won't approve this pipeline because it would, and if they did, it would provide jobs. But in Obama's eyes, you know, he's not going to let that happen. So.
Well, you know, you can have somebody say 7 years ago that they're going to fundamentally change America. Well, fundamentally change or fundamentally destroy are two different concepts. And the more this man's in office with the destruction of principles and ethics of our Constitution and also the destruction of value systems for progress, for making our country stronger, this man is doing exactly what he said. He is fundamentally destroying the United States of America.
Yes, he is, and I agree with that.
Well, I appreciate your call.
All right. Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your call. We got time for one more. 436-2244. 1-866-927-4587. Give me a jingle on the landline. Like to hear what your opinions are. Once again, that Mini-Cash and Lincoln Day Luncheon will be held this Saturday, February 28th at Maury's Steakhouse, and the meet and greet starting at noon, and then the luncheon at 1 o'clock. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. I got 2 minutes left.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
Hey, my thing about this is the less jobs he can create, the more people he can keep unemployed, the more people he can vote for gimme instead of work. I'll let you go.
I can't answer that with any negative. I have to agree that it's almost like giving an increase to the welfare rolls in this country. Thank you again for your call. Next hour, and holy smokes, this looks like an FBI lineup here this morning. I've got a lot of guests coming in for the Kasich school bond election. We're going to be discussing that in its entirety. And we've got Debbie here, along with many others that I don't know all your names. I apologize. But But we're going to have questions and answers about the upcoming election and bond on March the 10th, I believe it is. And so if you have questions about what they're proposing, please give us a call this next hour. We would love to hear from you. So we're going to take a little break for about 6 minutes, get everything organized, and have people hold different microphones, etc., and we'll be back. So don't go away. Zeb at the Ranch, I'll be back in about 6 minutes. Here we go. Hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch. And, of course, we're brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and along with some of our great advertisers. Thank you to Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call Kelly and the crew at 734-6969. You know, I've looked forward to having all these folks in my studio the last couple of weeks as we're going to be talking about the Cassia County school bond issue. And we have with us today, and we're going to go right around the table and have them say a hello and what they do on this committee. First of all, we have the co-chair of the committee, Mr. Eric Bedke. Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. Good to be with you.
And you, like you stated just a few moments ago, are the brains of the cattle operation, right?
I don't know if I go quite that far.
Well, it's good to have you on the committee. Just give us a quick synopsis as to why you wanted to be a part of the Citizens Committee and what you do as co-chairman of this committee. Hold that real close, please.
This whole thing got started, Zeb, when a couple of us, myself included, we went to the school board meeting and said with the failure of 3 previous bonds and still some sore spots in the district, how did they plan on taking care of those needs?
Right.
It wasn't a good thing to say, Zeb. They turned it right back to me and they said, Mr. Bedke, we've kind of had some trouble passing anything and making any headway. Why don't we bounce this ball to you and see what you could do with it?
So you took it and dribbled it, and that's why you're co-chairman.
We're doing the best that we can do.
Okay, good. Next to you, we have Jolene Graham. Is that right, Jolene?
Yes, it is.
Tell us a little bit about you, please.
My husband and I have been in the community for well over 20 years now, and we've had 5 kids go through the schools. 3 have graduated, and 2, I've got one in the junior high and one in the high school still in Burley, so I'm representing the Burley committee.
And you must have been on a radio program before because you know how to hold a microphone.
Well, not very often.
Okay, you do a good job. And then we have Brooke Christensen. Good morning, Brooke.
Good morning.
And she's married to a very famous basketball player that I remember, The Shot.
Yes, that's true.
He was quite a hero, Mike Christensen. How many years ago was that now? I'm going to put some age on myself.
Oh, God. It's been a while.
At least 12, wasn't it?
Yes. I would say 12 or 13.
Yeah, I'm getting old. But now tell us about your involvement on this committee.
I got on the committee as a representative from the Malta area, and I currently have 3 kids in the school system out there.
Okay. And next to you is a lady that, golly gee, if it weren't for you, and I mean this, Debbie Critchfield, we would not have school days in Cassia County and sponsored, and you do a wonderful job as the communications director and lining people up to come on the program, some of which I had no clue as to what to do, but it was very interesting, especially the one that comes to mind was the gentleman we had on about the chess.
That was a very interesting segment.
I learned a lot.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. And a shout out to you. I mean, I can get all the people in the world, but you've given us the time and the opportunity, so we appreciate that.
Let's get right to it, Debbie, and we'll start with you on the far end of this panel. You need money, and you've got some schools in Cassia County that absolutely are falling apart, right?
Correct. As Eric stated, back in March, a group of citizens from our outlying communities came into the school board and said, we know you've got 3 failed bonds. We still have needs. How are you going to fix that? And from that grew a committee of 24, a little over 24 citizens from around the county that represented all of our attendance zones, and they got to work. And they spent a good 9 months coming up with a list of recommendations that they then presented to the school board back in December for their approval. And the board was satisfied with what this committee had come up with, and they passed a resolution for an election that we're going to have March 10th.
Let me just say something there. It sounds like parents really getting involved to tell other parents really how bad the situation is, right?
Yeah, and beyond parents for sure of children that are currently in schools or maybe had gone through CAJA schools. But I also want to mention that this committee wasn't just yes bond voters entirely. There was a great cross-section. We had folks who had never voted for school bonds, and we had some that voted for everything and everything in the middle. And there was a great dynamic that took place with this group of citizens as they came together, and rather than just looking in each other's or in our own backyards, these folks were able to, as they toured the facilities around the district, to understand and see the needs of their neighbors.
Let's go around the committee right now, and I want to start with Eric on this. Eric, in your opinion, how serious is it right now that this bond be passed? Why?
There are several reasons, Zeb. As you've mentioned, there are some facilities that are actually in really poor shape, in the places that you wouldn't want to have your kids in. One thing that we'll mention is a lot of the portable classrooms, the modular classrooms that are in Burley. Some of those are in some sorry shape. They're unsafe. They're disconnected from the building. Heaven forbid if there was ever an issue in one of our schools that it's been nationwide for the last several years, it would not be a good situation to have kids in modular classrooms. So safety has been one of the things that we've addressed. Just literal crumbling of some buildings that has taken place, and foundations that have gone to pot, and water systems that are not good. We could go on.
Now, Eric, I'm not a builder. I'm not a construction man. But normally when buildings are built, the plumbing, the electrical, everything else, what's the longevity factor that they look for before replacement has to come in?
And that depends on when they were built. It seems like part of the buildings that we have that were built back in the 1950s are still in marvelous shape. For example, Dvorak Elementary is one of those. Then you take Declo Elementary and say Mountain View Elementary in Burley that were built in the early 70s under the open concept where they didn't take the classroom walls to the ceiling and they didn't put doors on the classrooms and they wanted everything to be open. But obviously that was never very successful, and then they've taken measures to try to remodel those things that haven't worked well and have left several things that are actually dangerous, like return air ducts that are in the hallways of your schools. If there were ever an issue there, the furnace system itself would pull smoke through the building. We toured all of these buildings. When we went into Mountain View, in the one wing where we went, it was 52 degrees in that wing of that school building that morning.
Oh my!
And there were the hallway was lined with portable heaters that the PTO had gotten together and raised funds to purchase. Of course, that out there in the hallway where kids are hanging their coats, where there's papers, it wasn't a good situation. And like I say, there's some urgent things that need to be taken care of.
Let's ask Jolene Graham the same question, if I could, Jolene. I mean, as a parent, you have a viewpoint as to what you want your kids to be in as far as the environment is concerned for education. What were your thoughts about the schools and the attitude and personality of the schools and the depreciation? What were your thoughts when you saw it?
You know, it was very interesting as we toured. Every group on our committee kind of came from a particular area, and we all had our own needs and wants list. But as we toured together and saw all of the schools in the district, it made a real difference in the attitude of the committee. And we realized that, you know, it wasn't just our own area that had needs, but the entire district has some very severe needs. And in Burley, in addition to some of the mechanical problems, you know, we know the junior high and the Dvorak and Mountain View all need heat. Dvorak's boiler has been on the list since the early 80s. They have to manufacture parts for those systems when they go down. But in addition to that, there is really a huge amount of crowding. White Pine Elementary was built for approximately 600. They currently have over 830 students, and they are actually the second largest school in the district, and they serve 4th through 6th grade, which is way too large for that age of student. In a couple of years without any growth, and we do anticipate growth in Burley, they will be the largest with well over 900 students. They don't have anywhere to put those students at all. Right now, they've already taken the locker room and made that into a classroom. Their next step, they have modulars. They would have to actually take some of the library time and put classes in there. So we really need another elementary. With that move, we would be able to take it back to the neighborhood school system of a K through 6 rather than 1 through 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the junior high and high school. Research by far mandates that is a better system for our students. With every transition that they make, they lose ground, and the younger the transition is made, the longer it takes for them to recover. Parents would only have to support one PTO for the first 6 years instead of trying to support, Dworshak, White Pine, junior high, high school. It would be much easier on the parents. The busing would be reduced. Traffic patterns around town would be eased up a little bit with that situation, and it will be much better for our students.
Okay. Brooke Christensen, correct me if I'm wrong, you live out at Malda?
Yes.
Okay. So, needless to say, you as a parent have been probably a little bit miffed as to the water situation out there at Malda, Raft River High School. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
What are some of the other areas, along with the water situation, that have made you as a parent really concerned?
Well, the first one is being the water. My kids have been in school for 6 years now, and I've had to send them bottled water to school every single day that they've been in there. We don't trust it. We know that the problem lies within the pipes of
So they know what
school.
The problem is now?
Yes. When our school was built, the high school, the pipes were cemented into the foundation. And as we've added onto the school in the different years, they've capped off some of those pipes. Well, what happens is when they shut off that water in the spring, it pools back into these dead-end pipes. And then when we start school in the fall and the water's pushed through it, we have a whole bunch of bad tests again. We know that until those pipes are gone, it's not going to be resolved.
So the reparations to the piping system and the school system is absolutely a necessity.
Yes, absolutely. They need to be gone. Yeah, and the other issues we deal with, heating's a big thing. We have one heating unit in the main parts of the school that is trying to heat the entire school. And same thing, we can't get parts for it anymore.
I would suggest to you folks, Eric, I think, mentioned it was, 52 degrees in the hallway?
That's correct.
Why don't you make some extra money for the school and just hang meat in there from Independent or something, for heaven's sake?
That's the thought, Seb.
Debbie, the cost. Let's talk a little bit on the cost. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but out of memory, I think the original that you would ask for on the bond was approximately about $46 million. Was that right? Close to. And you folks, on behalf of your committee, have taken pencils with erasers and whittled this thing down to where you're asking $37 million approximately on this next bond election.
That is correct. The bonding capacity for the school district is actually $70 million, and no one is suggesting that we get near that number. However, when the committee, after their initial tours of the buildings, they were asked, the individual folks were asked to come back with a list of sorts, and there could be wants on there. What do you think in your area needs to happen to help out the facility situation? And as those folks came back, we started with a number and we worked our way down. The committee recognizes that we live in a conservative community that is frugal and that wants to make prudent decisions with the tax money, and those are all great things. And so as they we started to add numbers together.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Did you take at that time basically a per school, per study, and then just took the eraser and started chopping it down on a per school need?
In yes and no. Everything that took place, any of the decisions that took place, were all done with everyone in the room.
I see.
And so it wasn't that, well, let me back up a little bit. Each of the folks that represented a particular school area, they had a subcommittee that met individually as their little group with professionals that were able to help, guide some of those discussions and decisions. And then those subcommittees came back to the full committee and presented to the whole group. This is what we need, and this is why we think this is important. And then with all of that information on the table, the whole committee went to work on seeing what truly were the needs, what is sellable, and what was a number that we could live with that was a very minimal impact to taxpayers.
How many facilities, how many buildings are we talking about within the district that need reparation?
Boy, on the list, I think we've, sure. I mean, as far as just in general, where there are things taken off.
Yeah.
Well, there's 17 schools in the district, and we've had deferred maintenance for many years in the district, and so there were smaller needs at some of those facilities, and obviously larger needs, such as a replacement of a high school in Raft River. And one of the goals of this committee, what was bond worthy? What's something that's just day-to-day maintenance that the school district should take out of their maintenance funds? What's something that would be appropriate on a plant facility levy that we currently have in place? But what was it that needed to be on this bond? And that was a great discussion.
Eric, back over to you. I guess, are you convinced, yourself personally, that the $37 million bond issue is adequate? Or is it to the bare bones where maybe a year or two down the road, we got problems?
That has been a great concern of this committee, that what we do doesn't call for, in the midlife of this bond, for another bond to take care of the things that we haven't done. So we have tried to take into account any potential growth that is going to happen in the community. We've visited with the Chamber of Commerce. We visited with Realtors Association and tried to project growth. If we had a crystal ball, it would, of course, have been easier. But within each of these proposed facilities, we've tried to leave a little room for growth. But it may be better to answer your question. When this committee came together, as was mentioned, we each came from our own respective communities with our own respective axes to grind, if you will. Mm-hmm. And a smart thing that we did end up doing, and whether it was by hook or crook, we went and visited each of these facilities that each of these different committees, subcommittees, were proposing.
Well, let me interrupt you and ask you a question there. When you put the word out that you were going to have these see-it-for-yourself type meetings, what was the turnout like?
For the public, it hasn't been great. I'd love to take every Cassia County voter to see some of the things that we saw. And for like what I was trying to say though is when we saw Declo Elementary, for example, even for a diehard ardent Oakley advocate, I had to say, man, we don't have anything that's like what they're dealing with in Declo Elementary or in Malta, or even like I say, for safety issues, all of the outside classrooms from the schools in Burley, as well as the overcrowding issues. Yeah, I am convinced that number is where we need to be.
Let me ask right next to you, please, Jolene, what about the people understanding the bond? I mean, you're talking even at $37 million, bare bones, if you will. That's a lot of money. But when they understand what it's going for and to be used how to basically provide better educational environments for the kids, maybe they can understand it. But has the advertising been such that the general public understands what's going to happen?
Well, that's a good question, and always the most difficult aspect of the bond presentations, I think. We have tried very hard as a committee to go out and reach out to the communities. We've visited with all the faculties. We've visited all the service clubs. We've visited with the PTOs of every school, and we've hit senior citizens groups. We're hitting migrant council groups. We've, tried to do everything we can. We have had community meetings. Unfortunately, we don't get a huge turnout at those meetings, and so it does better word of mouth and friend and neighbor to neighbor. We wish we could get a huge group at the community meetings.
Now, of course, you are relying upon a 2/3 majority on this vote, right? And so a great voter turnout is necessary. Let me jump ahead and have Brooke answer this question. What about the polling places? And we have a question. Caller, don't you dare leave, or you're going to have to pay $200 to get out of jail free. Stay there, and I'll be right with you. I want Brooke to answer this question. What about the polling places and the times, so that we can hit this a couple of times during the program?
Everyone will vote at their local precinct.
I see.
And it'll be from 8 to 8 on March 10th.
8 to 8, March 10th. Very simple. 8 to 8.
Very simple, yeah. And you have to bring your photo ID.
Okay, good. Caller, go ahead with the question.
Okay, I just turned on Maybe You Address This. We own some apartments over in Cuyahoga County, but we don't live there. So how can I vote there because we own them, or how can I encourage my renters to vote if they just moved in or something?
Okay, I tell you what, ma'am, I will have them address that over the air, and I do thank you for your question. Thank you very much. And I'll have Debbie, if you'd answer that, please. Go ahead.
In order to vote in any of the elections, and I know we're talking about the school bond, you need to have been a resident of Cuyahoga County for 30 days.
30 days.
And you can register at the poll the day of the election. And so if you are not a resident of the county but are a property owner in the county, then you can't vote.
But address the fact about how she wants to tell the people that are renting from her.
And we appreciate the encouragement to vote. And beyond the bond, we want people to vote. We just think that that's important as an American to go and vote.
Absolutely.
And so certainly those that in her situation, reminding them that there's an election coming up, and encouraging people, especially those if her renters have children in the schools. That's an important thing for them to get informed on. How is this going to affect the school that my children are going to?
We got another caller, and then I've got a hard break at the bottom of the hour. Good morning, caller. You're on the air, please. Talk to me, caller. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yes, I got one question. I was concerned. I understand Twin Falls is building a couple of elementary schools, and those schools are going to be comparable to what we want to build here. They're allowing $15 million per building, and our estimate is $8 million for our building. The concern we have, are we cutting ourselves to where we're not going to have enough things in the buildings to be adequate, that we wind up like our junior high here with heat that doesn't work half the time?
Sir,
I'll let you answer that.
I appreciate your call. Thank you very much, and they will answer that on the air. Take whomever. Eric, you want to answer that? Or this is kind of interesting. Microphones are going all over here. Go ahead, if you would, Jolene.
That question has been posed before, and first of all, it's really difficult to compare what we're building here to what Twin Falls is building over there. We have worked very closely with an architect whom we feel is very qualified. He understands our area as being conservative. We want to have something nice and well built that will last, but we are not proposing to build a Taj Mahal or something really fancy. It will just be very nice, very efficient. It will look nice. We can't really compare ours to Twin Falls without knowing the specifics of each plan.
Okay. Debbie?
I just wanted to piggyback on that to say that one of the studies that this group has done is the enrollment, and they have looked at how many students, how many classrooms, and there's been a count made on that so that any decision about square footage and design that was a factor.
I want to reiterate some other point, too, that you have a golden opportunity out there in the radio audience to call and ask four very knowledgeable people about this school bond, and we're going to take a hard break and send it back to the studio for about 3 minutes, and we'll be back for the next half hour with these folks representing the school bond issue for Cassia County. So give us a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Prior to sending it back over to our studio, I want to remind everybody about Burley Glass, 1029 Overland Avenue in Burley, with old Gentle Ben and Leslie working hard to provide great service to all the communities in Magic Valley. And talk about vinyl windows installation in your home that can increase the energy efficiency of your home by 2 to 3 times. I did it in my office. Absolutely the best. Call them today, 678-1459. Burley Glass on Overland in Burley. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
Welcome back. Last half hour. Very interesting half hour, too, as we're visiting with the folks on the Cassia County School Bond. And caller, I'll be right there. Don't go away. Just have another sip of hot chocolate. I'll be with you in a moment. Don't forget Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation with Nick Greenwell and the rest of his staff at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Number to call for an appointment, 678-1191. I've been over there working on my old leg, and boy, they know all the sports medicine, all the exercises. They've got the hydrotherapy pool with the treadmill on the bottom. Oh my, they're helping you get back to feeling like you. Stop in or give a call. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Number to call, 678-1191. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. Hey, I've got a question regarding the elementary to be built on the south side of Burley there on South Park.
All right, sir. Go ahead quickly with your question.
Well, my concern is they're going to build that school out there, and all the traffic coming from Burley has to go through one 4-way stop sign. All the traffic to Dot Foods, all the traffic to the box factory, all the traffic in that corner of town has to route through that one 4-way stop sign. Does the school district have any plans to mitigate the traffic problems they're going to cause out there?
Good question, and I'll see who's going to take that. Debbie, I believe, are you going to take that?
Sure. We have been working closely with our city and county officials on addressing other traffic issues, and so I have every confidence in the world that that will be something that can be worked out. I do want to mention that the final resting place or building place of this new elementary that's been recommended has not been settled on permanently. So the school district does own 12 acres south of Burley. They also own about 12 acres off of, it's north of the Truth Tabernacle Church. I think it's Highland. And those are the two locations that the school district currently owns property on. And the committee has recommended building south of Burley because that's where the growth is. However, the community will have a say in that final decision.
All right, we appreciate the calls. Another call coming in. Good morning. You're on the air. Talk to me, caller. Go.
You need new schools for increased student enrollment. Are all of the students enrolled in these schools? Are they U.S. citizens?
Go ahead, Debbie, if you will.
Yes, is the short answer.
Okay. Thank you, caller. And calls are welcome at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. There are people probably that have negative feelings about spending more money on a bond. And let's face it, you've had complaints when it was at 45 or 46 million. Now you've sharpened your knife and cut it back down to 37 million. But the one thing that I think you want to make a real point to the audience here this morning is that everything you're doing for this school bond issue is very transparent and open to the public for information, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We've put everything out there on the CassiaSchool.org website, and if you go on there, it has a thing that has tax information. It has pictures of all the different buildings and the things that we've seen. We've also encouraged people, they can call us, they can go around to the schools themselves. We want people to be informed about what's going on so that they can make a good decision.
Brooke, over to you for a second. I don't have have a horse in this race because I live in Twin Falls County, but I would say that if the facilities are not up to par and the kids are cold and there may be troubles with the electricity or there might be water problems or whatever, these problems need to be addressed sooner than later because of the inflated costs in the future.
Yes, that's true. We know that right now.
I said Brooke, and I looked over at Jolene. It just shows how well I know you folks. I apologize.
But yes, we know that costs right now are at a low, and so we know that it would be a good time to build. The other thing is these problems just keep getting worse and worse, and it's going to come to a point that the kids are not going to be able to be in these buildings anymore.
It's kind of like I hold my roping arena together with duct tape, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know what we'll do then when these buildings are to where we can't even put them in there.
There might even be a closure factor.
Yes.
Eric?
It's kind of like these gals here are not into the ranching deal like maybe you and I are, Zeb, but the analogy that I drew, we had a set of corrals where the crowding pen into our squeeze chute was falling down. We had to park tractors against all the posts in order to be able to use it. And I said to Scott, we're tearing this down this year. And when we tore it down, the pen next to it fell over. And when we tore that one out, the one next to it leaned. And even though I love the fact that this was my grandfather's corral, it got to a point where we were going to have a corral full of cattle.
Absolutely.
And it was going to tip over. The vet was going to be there, and there we were going to be.
Absolutely.
And even though I think that's an applicable application, especially on safety issues. If you ever had an issue of safety, and this hadn't been addressed through this, it'd be a similar issue to that.
I don't think there's an issue of anybody disagreeing with this. When it comes to kids and safety, you can't draw a cheap line, can you? Now, Jolene, pardon me. Caller, I'll be right with you. Stand by.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention is that what's happened because we have not been able to pass a bond and update and build the facilities that we need, money is being spent on projects that really are just putting Band-Aids on the problems. For instance, Mountain View has money scheduled currently for their heaters, but that is not going to solve the problem of the ventilation and the fire issues in that building because it was built under an open classroom system. And so really, if it doesn't pass and they end up having to pay for those heaters, we're going to pay for them again.
And quickly, Debbie, before we take this call, I wasn't being facetious a moment ago. If things aren't up to code, you could literally get shut down, couldn't you?
Well, and we have several of our facilities that do not pass safety inspections currently. They're grandfathered into, to whatever the age was for those building codes. But yeah, we fill fire safety codes at several of our buildings every year.
Okay. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. My two questions here. One is it possible for the citizens of Cache County to visit their local school with the permission principal, go through and see these problems so they will be able to come up with their own ideas of how they want to vote? And the other one, I just want to make sure that it's going to be enough that in the future they won't have to come back again, say in another 15 years and have the same problem. So I'll let you go.
All right, thank you. Who wants to address that quickly? Eric?
We've even offered to take people around. Who would, this is our, this Have You Seen It is our logo that we have chosen, and like I say, we've even offered to take people out on tours and show them these facilities. In fact, I think that's the greatest asset that we've got with this community, or with this committee, is the just going and looking. It's not hard to. You don't have to be an architect to see what we saw.
You know, we were talking during the break, and I'm going to be very open and forthright about some of the conversations we had. And Debbie, you had mentioned that one of the questions that has come up is. And I'll paraphrase it, well, if you get rid of Common Core and don't even think about Common Core, then I'll go ahead and vote yes for the school bond. How would you relate to that?
That they're apples and oranges. We respect the right for people to have opinions about the curriculum and the standards and those decisions that are made at the state level. We are able to control the facilities, and dislike or uneasiness with the standards that are in our schools right now, that is one conversation, and the conversation that we'd like to have right now pertains to the condition of our facilities.
You know, I want to talk to you about the growth factor. I don't know. I haven't talked to Kay Cameron specifically about this in the last little bit, but I would assume that when we're looking at people coming in and the location of where you sit in Cassia County especially, basically on the hub of the interstate going north, south, etc., that you're going to be looking at an always appreciating population growth factor for Cassia County. Am I right or wrong?
You are correct. In fact, one of the factors that this committee used in their decision-making process relied heavily on the information coming from our Mini-Cassia Chamber, as they have their pulse or their finger on the pulse of the businesses coming into town and where they're settling, who is eyeing the area, and not everyone's going to settle in Twin, and not everyone's going to settle in Rupert. And we know that schools are a big selling point for businesses that choose to locate in the area. Is this a place that I want to bring my workers and have my families have their children attend those schools? And we kept a really close eye and got a great vibe of what's coming up in our area.
What about, let's give the synopsis of what if. Okay, what if this passes on March 10th? What is the projected date to start all the different projects in Cassia County schools?
There will be a 60-day period after, if this bond passed, there would be a 60-day period to sell those bonds.
I see.
And any time from that point on, construction could begin.
So basically, you folks as a committee have lined up the potential construction companies and everything else as far as getting and soliciting bids for them?
I'll address that briefly. The school board last night at their regular meeting actually called for proposals for a construction manager. This committee, one of the things that they were very adamant on with the school board, not only moving forward with the recommendations, was the process in which these facilities would be built. And they would like to see that handled by people who do that professionally. And so the board has put out a request for proposal for some general contractors and a construction manager that would be able to oversee the whole project.
A naive question on my part, have you prioritized the importance of certain projects over another once this is passed that you would want to address, i.e. the water situation in Malda, etc.?
Yes, we have prioritized. Perhaps the new elementary in Burley would probably be one of the first projects, just because you're going to have to displace, in order to gut and remodel Mountain View, for example, there's going to have to be a place to put those kids, because obviously they'll need some place to go.
Right.
But the other thing that we wanted to point out here, though, is that other projects can be going on at the same time. The money that is, in other words, we know how much money is going to be allocated to Burley, Malta, Declo, and Oakley, and this is one of the main differences of this bond in comparison to bonds that have happened in the past. It's not going to be one pot of money from which we'll draw from that pot till this project's done, and then go on down and see what's left at the end. Each of these allotted amounts for each of the communities, each community will get that amount.
Well, I've got to do a weather forecast, and then I want to welcome some more questions. And I want to hear people that maybe have questions that are making them kind of iffy on whether they want to vote for it, yes or no. Give us a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Right now it's time for the weather forecast, brought to you this hour by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. Offering the very best of beef, pork, lamb, and the processing of wild game. Everything they sell is guaranteed, and they sell taste one bite at a time. Locally owned and serving all of southern Idaho, Scarrows Meats. And right now, here is the weather.
Mostly sunny skies for today, but it is going to be windy. Out of the west, 10 to 20 miles an hour, gusts possible over 30. Expect a high right near 51 for today. Tonight, partly cloudy, early followed by cloudy skies overnight. Looking at a low right near 30. Winds will continue out of the southwest, 5 to 10 miles an hour. For tomorrow, we are expecting mostly cloudy skies in the morning. Slight chance of snow showers as well, and it's going to be breezy, high of 44. Tomorrow night, mostly cloudy, low near 26.
Thank you. There's your weather forecast, brought to you by Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Number to call, 324-7657. Selling taste one bite at a time. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
What are they going to do with the Declo grade school kids while they demolish the building and construct a new one? I'll hang up while you answer. Thank you.
I appreciate your call. What about the Declo grade school? Go ahead, whoever wants to take that.
The new Declo grade school will be built in a different location, somewhere right in there, but we'll actually build that school first, and the kids will continue to go in the older school, and then we'll move them over and demolish the other one.
I would imagine, I don't know how many people are on your committee, but I would imagine that you really had a lot of teamwork, a lot of hours, a lot of sitting at the table, coming up with all the possible answers to all these various questions. Do you feel like you've got all your bases covered? How about you, Jolene?
Well, as Eric said earlier, it'd be nice if we had a crystal ball, which we do not. But we have had a lot of conversations, and one important thing I think for the community to understand is that, as Debbie said earlier, it was a very diverse group of people, and in the end, we all agreed upon the proposal, and that didn't happen without some lively discussion and some give and take. But very respectful of each community, and we have said we have each other's back. If someone asks me why do they need this in another community, I can tell them why, as well as them for Burley.
Let me just ask you this. What was on the committee possibly the most asked question as to whether or not they should do this? Is there one that stands out?
Well, probably maintenance. Perhaps some people felt like maintenance shouldn't be covered in a facilities bond, that should be new construction. But the district is so far behind right now in some of the maintenance needs. We felt like it was the only solution to get heat back into our schools and to correct some of the problems that existed, so that then some of the needs that are further down the list can be covered.
I want to be clear and understand this. So basically we were talking about, 17 different schools in the district. Did you have parental people and committees formed from various schools so that you had a sounding board to go to and talk to them personally?
We relied upon the subcommittees, so the whole committee came together countywide, and I'll just quickly mention that it was an invitation. I invited people. I made over 60 phone calls. I sent out letters. We solicited support. We had people that called me and said, and incidentally, I'm the facilitator of this committee and, the liaison between the board. Folks that called me and said, I'd like to be a part of it. I hear that, you're going to put this together. We made sure that we had good representation from all of our distinct communities. And then those folks, as their subcommittee in their area, went back into their town and visited with the principal and teachers and their neighbors and PTO people, so that they had a sense of the wishes and desires of their community.
Okay, I'm going to do a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to start with Eric, and we're going to go right down the line and give us a sales pitch as to why they should vote on March 10th for the school bond. So everybody be prepared. We're almost down to the last few minutes. Don't forget the Founders Day celebration going on for your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Yes, I know Mr. Les Schwab. Before he passed away, what a wonderful man up in Prineville, Oregon, and, of course, the originator of the Les Schwab Tire Stores. Great man, and, of course, still that business tradition continues. Very professional with service-oriented folks, always serving you with the best of tires and, of course, front-end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. It's all there. The best in brake service at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Don't forget, they've got all-season tread, economically priced tires starting as low as just $39.99 for the Founders Celebration. So stop in and see Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, Twist family over in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy, the old Seahawk fan, on Oberlin and Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Absolutely the best. Eric, please start us off. You are now going to give a sales pitch as to why they should vote yes on March 10th.
As we've mentioned, Zeb, this has been a needs-driven effort, and every issue on this ballot has been well vetted by a very diverse group, and we feel like what we have got proposed let me say this before I make my final statement. I was one of the ones that they had to convince to put maintenance issues like furnaces in on this bond, because I've always felt like those should be on a different budget. However, the bottom line of what we have been trying to accomplish as a group is to have every student in a good facility that was warm and that was as good as anybody else in the county. And we feel like this touches every need that should last us for the next 20 years, at least the life of this bond. And I think that this puts everybody in that position.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric Bedke, committee co-chairman, and Jolene Graham.
You know, it's just time. There has been a lot of frustration in the educational arena on many fronts, and a lot of reasons why the past bonds haven't passed. But it's time to be responsible for the youth in our community, and it's time to put them in warm buildings. It's time to make sure that we have facilities in place that will facilitate the correct size of classrooms. If it continues to grow and there's nowhere to put them, classroom sizes will be increased, and your child is not going to get as good an education as if they could have a smaller classroom. Students deserve to have heat. They deserve to have drinking water that is clean and they don't have to worry about. They shouldn't have to worry about roofs caving in. There are a lot of really severe problems, and it's time to step up as a community. The effect on our budgets is very minimal, and we need to support the education. It's good for everybody in the community.
All right, Jolene. Thank you. Very well stated. Brooke Christensen, if you would please, your thoughts.
Well, I would just kind of add to that a little bit. I feel like as we've gone around, we have seen the frustrations that lie within the district with people, and a lot of that lies with, how our teachers are currently being paid, which we agree, everyone on this committee, that they're being underpaid. But it's not something that we can change locally. That's something we have to talk to our legislators about. But somebody voting no on this bond is only hurting our children. Our children need to be in safe places. They need all of us as parents, whether we're from Oakley, Declo, Malta, wherever. We all want to feel that security that we're sending our kids to a safe environment and that they're able to learn there. And these facilities are not allowing that right now.
Okay.
So it's something that has to be done.
Brooke, thank you very much. Now, we do have a call, and I want to take that, and then we'll end with Debbie. Caller, real fast. I'm almost out of time. Go, please.
The opportunity to call in, and I apologize if I've missed this already. I had to turn the radio off for a minute, but it seems like in the past we've had several budget issues as far as teacher salaries and that go, and by adding more schools, obviously we'd be adding more teachers and that. How would we address those budget issues as far as their salaries? And I'll hang up. Thanks.
Debbie, do you want to hit that, and then I'll stay with you and wrap it up?
The teacher salary pot of money is separate than the money that goes into our facilities, and constructing new facilities does not necessarily mean that we will add more teachers. That is enrollment driven, and as our enrollment increases, which it has, then the state flows more money to the district to pay for salaries.
Now, you are a communications director, and I'm going to ask you to kind of give us a wrap-up as to the cost of the bond, the voting, the polling places, everything. Give us kind of a wrap-up as to what's going to happen on March 10th.
March 10th, 8 to 8, the polling places are open. However, early voting started on Monday, and we are really encouraging folks to go and early vote, which they can do that at the old courthouse, the clerk's office, county clerk's office. You take your photo ID. It doesn't matter the precinct, and you can vote early up until the 6th of March. If you wait until the 10th, which is completely fine also, 8 to 8, the polls are open. $36.95 is the total amount. This bond will affect and impact every community in our area, and it's a win-win. We all win when we have safe and well-maintained schools. That really should be a standard of our county, not considered a luxury, and this is a great time to do it.
Now, March 10th is right around the corner, but now what about information numbers and information per se in general that they can obtain and read and study what's going on?
We have got, of course, we've sent things home with our students, so if you haven't seen something from your child, your school can provide that. Our website, casuschools.org, has a tab, Bond Info. It has pictures along with the financial financial information and anything and everything, call the School Central office, 878-6600. They can ask for me. As was mentioned, any of the committee members, and the committee members are all listed on the website as well. Get a hold of one of them. Find them in the grocery store, at the gas station, at church. Hey, you were on the committee. What do you think about this really? Tell me now that it's just you and I. I think that people will find that those that participated are more than willing to answer questions.
And a quick personal reason as to why you'd like to see a yes vote?
Because I'm tired of talking about our broken schools. No, it's time. The timing is right. The economic conditions are good, and we're growing in our area. And the mini CASA has a lot to be proud of, and I think that CASA needs to be proud of ourselves.
I appreciate that. I want to say thank you to Eric Bedke and Jolene Graham, Brooke Christensen, and Debbie Critchfield. And I hope we answered a lot of the questions, and I appreciate your taking the time to come over here to Bankrupt Land and Cattle Company to be on the program with me. And once again, don't forget, March 10th is the voting date for the school bond for Cassia County. Tomorrow on the program, many people, including Senator Mike Crapo, calling in at 9:30, along with all of our Thursday guests and segments. So we ask you to tune in at 8:06. We'll saddle the horse and ride for 3 hours right here on Zeb at the Ranch. And we urge you to always remember the way things were are the way things ought to be. God bless, and don't forget, Zeb at the Ranch tomorrow morning at 8:06.